All right, guys, it's all right. It's okay. Happy Sunday, everybody. It's your girl Shay once again this week. Spiritual Sense with Shay, WVLM DJ Dummy Network. Shout out to everybody that's listening. Today we're coming from First Samuel, the 29th chapter, right? That's where we're coming from today. And as I said to you guys, today's teaching is you can't stay here. And so I went ahead and put up the scriptures for you to follow on if you are indeed watching. I'm coming from First Samuel, the 29th chapter. And it reads, the Philistines gathered all their forces at Aphek, and Israel camped by the spring of Jezreel. As the Philistine rulers marched with their units of hundreds and thousands, David and his men were marching at the rear with ashes. Now, y'all heard me say the name David, so you know the story is about David, right? And David was something to be reckoned with in the scriptures. So, let me continue on. The commander of the Philistines asked, "What about these Hebrews?" Ashes replied, "Is this not David, who was an officer of Saul, king of Israel? He has already been with me for over a year, and from the day he has left until now I have found no fault in him." We're at verse 4. But the Philistine commanders were angry with Ashes and said, "Send the man back, that he may return to the place you assigned him. He must not go with us into battle, or he will turn against us during the fighting. How better should he regain his master's favor than by taking the heads of our own men? Isn't this the David that they sang about in their dances? Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands." We're at verse 6. So Asher called David and said to him, "As surely as the Lord lives, you have been reliable, and I will be pleased to have you serve with me in the army. From the day you came to me until now, I have found no fault in you, but the rulers don't approve of you. Now turn back and go in peace. Do nothing to displease the Philistine rulers." But what? This is David asking the question. "But what have I done? What have you found against your servant from the day I came to you until now? Why can't I go and fight against the enemies of my lord the king?" We're at verse 9. Arshish answers, "I know that you have been as pleasing in my eyes as an angel of God. Nevertheless, the Philistine commanders have said he must not go up with us into battle. Now get up early along with your master's servant who have come with you, and leave in the morning as soon as it is light." So David and his men got up early in the morning to go back to the land of the Philistines, and the Philistines went up to Jezreel. All right. So again, today we are talking about you can't stay here. You can't stay here. Right? So when we think about that topic, you can't stay here. Many thoughts concerning here where, like here where are you talking about? Where can I stay? Are you saying that I can't stay here as in live here? I need to move? Are you saying I can't stay here as in I need to find a new job? You're firing me? What do I need to do? What is really meant when somebody says you can't stay here? Well, for today, for all intents and purposes, I'm referring to your current situation. I'm referring to your current circumstances. When I say you can't stay here, that is what I am talking about. Your current state of mind, your current way of being, your current living condition, whatever that may be, the current place you are in your life right now. When I say you can't stay here, that's what I'm talking about. You can't stay here. Here is wherever or whatever the thing is that you know is wreaking havoc in your life. That's your here. You can't stay here. If it's causing you pain, if it's causing you drama, if it's causing you misery and stress, and you can't sleep and you're angry all the time and something is just not right, that's that here that you can't stay. Today I'm telling you that if you want your life to count for something, if you want your life to matter, if you want to do something that you have never done before, you have got to get it in you that you can't stay where you are. You just can't do it. We have some things to do and we have some places to go. Just like I told you earlier, right? When I had my little hat on, got to get myself together because I got some places to go. We got some places to go and we got some things to do, and that means that we can't stay where we currently are. Right? So let's talk about the players of the story. We got David. That's the only person cover, as well as Ashes. David and Ashes. And what do we know about David? There's a lot to know about David, right? There's a lot to know about David, but I can't cover everything concerning David. I only want to cover what's important for today's teaching, for today's lesson. First of all, David came from a very humble beginnings. He was a sheep herder. That's what he did. He took care of the sheep. Very disgusting job, but that's what David did. Very humble beginnings. Out of all of his brothers, it was 8 of them in total. Out of all of them, he was chosen by the prophet Samuel to become king. And so Samuel goes in, he gets David, and he anoints him as king at a young age. We're talking about like the age of 10. Now, my baby is 10. So we're talking about a 10-year-old being anointed to be a king. Right? He is placed in King Saul's service and he becomes the king's armor bearer. So we're going to talk about Saul, but he's Saul's armor bearer, meaning he takes care of everything that Saul needs him to take care of, right? David is a warrior, and he was a successful warrior, including fighting with the Philistines, which will become important later on. He was such a great warrior that they made a song out of him, right? It said, Saul kills thousands, but David has slain tens of thousands. So Saul is the king, but David was anointed as the king, and David is the one that does more killing than anybody. We're going to talk about that in a minute. David was anointed to be king, but Saul was appointed to be king. The Spirit of the Lord was with David, but the Spirit of the Lord had left Saul. David was anointed. Saul, he was appointed king. The Spirit was with David, but the Spirit wasn't with Saul, right? David flees to take refuge with Ashes, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And the reason why he fled was because Saul tried to kill him. Saul wanted him dead. Saul was tormented. He didn't like the fact that a whole lot of folks was praising David and he was the necessary king. And so, he was just paranoid. There's a lot to learn about Saul. You got to read the scriptures to find about Saul. But nevertheless, he was trying to kill David. So David tried to seek refuge, and he sought refuge with Asher, right? And so he didn't become king until he was about 30 years old. He was a man after God's own heart. He brought the Ark of God, the Ark of the Covenant, back to Jerusalem, and he wrote many of the Psalms. Those are some of the things you need to know about David. Not a whole lot, right? So, because there's a lot more to know about David. Now, who was Ashes? He was a king. He was a king in Gath, a Philistine city to which David fled to, right? And he kind of gave David refuge away from King Saul, right? But then he sends David away because the folks around him, because David had killed a lot of the Philistines, he sends David away after David has served with him for many years. Very faithful servant to Ashes, but he sends him away because the Philistines didn't trust David, which I wouldn't trust David either. But nevertheless, let's go on with today's lesson. So that's a little background into who David was and who Ashes is. And so the first thing I want to talk about is that you're known by your works. You're known by your works. That means those things that you do, people know you by that. They may not know you by name, but they know you by the things that you have done. The scripture says that the commander of the Philistine asks, "What about these Hebrews?" Ashes replied, "Is this not David, who was an officer of Saul, king of Israel? He has already been with me over a year, and from that day he left until now I have found no fault in him." But the Philistine commander was angry with Ashes and said, "Send this man back, that he may return to the place you assigned him. He must not go with us in battle, or he will turn against us during the fight. How better could he regain his master's favor than by taking the heads of our own men?" Isn't this the David that they sang about in dance? Saul has slain his thousands and David his tens of thousands. So there's a conversation going on between the commander officer of the Philistines and Ashes. How many people do you know talk about a whole lot of stuff that they going to do, but somehow they wind up not doing nothing? Have you ever heard the phrase, I hear your mouth moving, or I see your mouth moving, but you're not really saying nothing. My bishop has this thing that he says, I hear you talking. And so all of those colloquialisms, they kind of suggest that you're talking a whole lot, but I don't see you doing nothing, right? So you have those people, but then you have the other side, the flip side of people who don't say nothing, and their actions speak very loud, loud and clear. That's what their actions do. In the scriptures, we have the commander of the Philistine asking the question, what about these Hebrews? What Hebrews was he talking about? He was talking about David and his people. What about these Hebrews? Notice that he didn't ask, who are these Hebrews? Because he knew who David was. He already knew. I ain't got to ask who he is. I know who he is. He asked the question, what about them? And this is very important because the commander, if he would have asked who, it would suggest that he didn't know about David's strength. It would have suggested that he didn't know that he had an army with him, right? It would have suggested that he didn't have the favor of God on his life, but he knew all of these different things. He didn't ask who David was. He said, what of these Hebrews? And since he was asking what, it suggested that I know your works. What of you? Since I know your works, I want to know, what are you up to now? I don't need to know who you are. I just want to know what you up to now, because I know your works. I know what you can do. I've heard about it. I've seen it. What can you do? Right? This is what he was asking. He was basically asking, what are they going to do? What are they here for? That's what he was asking. Have you ever been in a place where you thought you belonged, but when you got to that place, people were looking at you like, what are you doing here? Or why are you here? I've been in that place, honey. Like, I've walked into places and people would just stare like, okay, what is she doing here? What does she want? I'm being straight up. This is what it is. I have walked into places and the looks is just like, what is she doing here? Like they know about me. They don't know like my name or whatever, but they've heard some things, right? So have you ever been in that place? You know your reason for being there. You know that whatever the situation is, what you have to offer is very much needed. And since the people in this particular place already know you got the goods to make this happen, why are they so perplexed? They know you can do what you can do, but they're perplexed and they're nervous and they get anxious and they start acting all funny and looking at you all funny. Why is that? Are you aware that some people just don't want what you got? Some people just don't want what you got. That's just what it is. Some people just don't want what you got, even though what you got is good. That your very presence is intimidating. Your presence. You haven't opened your mouth. You haven't done anything. They heard something about you. You come in a place and your very presence is intimidating. They have never experienced your work personally, but they have heard that it's off the chain. And because of this, they become very uncomfortable. Here you have David, who is now a part of Arsha's camp, doing what he does best, being a warrior. That's what David was. He was still killing tens of thousands. He was a warrior. He was actually the guard for King Ashes. That's what he did best. But the commander of the Philistine is reminded of David's work. When the commander asks Ashes, what about these Hebrews? Notice how Ashes responds. Notice his response. He says, is this not David? He didn't say, this is David. He said, is this not David? Which was, anytime somebody leads with the question, is this not so-and-so? That means that they already know. They know that you know who this is. So why are you even asking me the question? Ashes says, is this not David? In other words, do you know that you know who this is? Of course you do, but the commander didn't ask who it is. He said, what of them? As in, tell me what their intentions are. That's all he was asking King Ashes. What of these Hebrews? Meaning, tell me what their intentions are. What is David intending to do now? Because I know what he's capable of. There are times in our life when we can have the best of intentions, but because of what people know about us, we won't be accepted. Just because they know something about us, we won't be accepted. People will be skeptical about our contribution, because we have a lot to contribute. Don't think you don't have a lot to contribute, but they'll be skeptical about it and can sometimes cause us great frustration if we don't understand why they're not accepting us. David, his previous work, the commander in the Philistine, he tells Asher, send David back to Ziklag. Send him back. Now that you tell me what he's here for, send him back to Ziklag. Do not allow him to go into battle with us. Don't do it. Why? Because the commander felt that David would turn against them. Skeptical. You got contribution. You've been contributing, but now I'm skeptical. Why am I skeptical? Because I know what you've done in the past. I know your previous works. David would have, he thought David would have killed them, because David is known for killing Philistines. Don't forget that. And here you have the Philistine commander. They've given David refuge, but he's known for killing them in the past, in the previous chapters, which you got to read on your own. But he's like, I don't want him fighting with us. Send him back, because he might just kill us so that he could gain favor back with Saul, who was trying to kill us. The commander is skeptical because he knows that David's work speaks for itself. He knows about all the battles that David won. He knows about the songs that the Israel created. He knows about the favor of God that is on David's life, and he tells Ashes, send him back. He can't stay here. He can't stay here. What needs to be understood here is that David was with Ashes because he was fleeing persecution from King Saul, who was trying to kill him. Anytime you are in a situation that is life-threatening, the stakes are real. They real. Somebody's trying to straight kill you. That's a real stake, okay? Do you mean to tell me that I'm in a hard place and I've been rocking with you and I've been doing what I need to do, and because somebody else is influencing you, and this is him basically saying it to Ashes, because he's influencing you, you're going to go ahead and do what he tells you to do and just let me go. Just let me go. People, you have got to know that all things work together for our good. You have got to know that. That means that there is never anything wasted in the work that you have done. There's nothing wasted in what you have done. So the question becomes, is being known by my works a good thing, or is it a bad thing? Like, which one is it? Well, it depends on the work that you've done. Now, if you've done some crazy stuff, then that ain't gonna work on your path. That's not cool. You understand what I'm saying? But if you've done some good things, you have got to know that where God guides, he provides. You have got to work the work that God has sent you, because there's going to come a time where you cannot work anymore. So you have to let your work speak for you. What do you need to be able to do what you need to do, and what do you need to get out of this place, because you can't stay here any longer? Sometimes your works, your accomplishments, your success will call you to elevation, and that will cause people discomfort. That's what was happening with the Philistine commander. He was not comfortable with David. I know what you did before. I know your successes. I know your work. I know all of what you accomplished, and I'm not comfortable, so you can't stay here. And is this really David's problem? It's not David's problem. It's the commander's problem. Like, you're the one that got the problem with me. Like, I just do what I do. I do what I'm told. I do what I do. I have to continue. You have to continue to press towards the mark. You have to continue to press towards the mark. You cannot stay here. You got to get out this place. You can't stay here. And sometimes when people are rejecting you, it just is what it is, because you can't stay here. And I'm going to tell you why you can't stay here when we come back. All right, folks, we are back. Okay, so that was press towards the mark, because you have to keep pressing. You can't stay where you are, and that's what today's lesson is about. And so the second point that I want to talk to you about today is, don't take rejection personally. Like, Shay, what you mean? Don't take it personally. Don't take rejection personally, because you can't stay here no how. Like, you can't do it anyway, right? So, verse 6 says, so Archas calls David and says to him, as surely as the Lord lives, you have been reliable, and I would be pleased to have you serve with me in the army. For the day you came to me until today, I have found no fault in you, but the rulers do not approve of you. This is Archas saying this to David. Now turn back and go in peace. Do nothing to displease the Philistine rulers. Like, how you going to say to me that I've been great, I've been grand, but because other people don't approve, I got to go back? All right. Who likes to be rejected, right? Because we're talking about, don't take rejection personally. Nobody likes to be rejected. Like, absolutely nobody. I don't care who they are. They do not like to be rejected. I don't like to be rejected. You don't like to be rejected. No one likes to be rejected. And if we could prevent or predict rejection, that would be great, right? And definitely if we can prevent it. If I know that you're going to reject me, okay, good. So then I know not to approach you. And actually, it's the fear of rejection that hinders people from trying anything. It don't matter what what it is. If you fear that you're going to be rejected, then you're just not going to do it. But that wasn't the case with David. David was a fierce warrior, and he didn't care about being rejection. He had no fear, especially as it related to battle. The scripture says that Arshish brings David in and explains that while he has been pleased with his service, there are those that do not approve of him. This is what this man who David has served is saying to him. Like, I approve what you've been doing. I love what you've been doing for me, for my army, for my household. But other people don't. And because of this, Arshish informs David that you have to go back and that you will not be fighting in the battle. You're telling the warrior that he cannot fight. The thing that he's been doing for you wonderfully, now you can't do it because the people, right? What does David do? He begins to take the rejection personally. Yes, he does. And we know this. How do we know this? Because he begins to ask all kinds of questions. What were some of the questions that he asked? He was like, why? What have I done? This is what David says. When Arshish tells him, you can't go, I'm pleased with you, but the other people are not, David is like, well, what have I done? And him asking this question was to assert the fact that he was a strong warrior. That's first and foremost. What have I done? I've been nothing but a strong warrior. Ain't nobody in your camp like me. That's what David was saying, and he was right. It wasn't like he was lying. It was right. There was none like him, and there was no cause to not allow a warrior of his caliber to not go into battle with the Philistines. It didn't make any sense. Why would you take your strongest person out of battle? Why would you do something like that? That was one of the questions that he asked that shows that he was taking things personally. And then he says, what have you found against me? What have you found against me? Tell me what I've done to make you say that I can't fight in the battle. And this question suggested that he's been loyal. So what have you found against me? You can't tell me that I haven't been loyal. I did what I'm supposed to do, so I'm a hard worker, right? And now you want to switch things up. Everything has been wonderful and great, and now you want to switch things up. But one of the things you have to understand, and I don't want to get into it, but there was a reason that David also asked that question, because David was doing some other stuff in battle, and he was trying to see if Arshish knew about it. So that's what have you found in me? That's what that question came out, because he was trying to see if Arshish knew exactly what was happening while he was in battle, because Arshish never went with David in battle. He just know David was handling his business. But that's a whole nother topic. But nevertheless, he says, what have you found against me? I'm loyal. I do what I have to do. There's no reason for this. Then he asks, why can't I go and fight against the enemy? So he goes to, what have I done? What have you found against me? Why can't I go and fight? The fighting defined who David was. And so when he asked that question, it was like, hold up. You basically taking away who I am. I've been serving with you. I've been doing what I need to do. And now you want to take away who I am by not allowing me to go fight because the people that you with don't want me to fight because they knew of my works. David was in a frenzy, and his question suggested that, listen, I'm not taking this rejection. I'm taking it personally because I've served you. And I'm here to tell y'all that you cannot take rejection personally. Why can't you take a rejection personally, Shay? There are going to be times when a situation, a circumstance, or a season is just over. That's just what it is. It's over. It's a wrap. It's done. It's a hard pill to swallow for some people, because it's like, what you mean? I've been doing this for a long time and I'm good at it. What do you mean to tell me this particular season is over? It's over. And while we like to hold on to those things that we know, those things that bring us comfort, there's going to come a time where you are going to have to let things go. You just gotta let it go. You can't take every single rejection personally. Everything about your current situation is saying you can't stay here. You can't stay here. David was being told by his leader, and from the line of questioning, David was not trying to accept the fact that he could not stay there any longer. They said, send him back. David asks, what have I done? Do you know that sometimes you don't have to do anything and God will cause a shift whether you like it or not? Because sometimes we think that because we've done something, God is punishing us. Nah, sometimes you ain't got to do nothing. And people don't understand that. You ain't got to do a thing, but sometimes it is time to just shift, and God will cause that shift to occur. Everything happens for a reason according to God's plan. Everything. Everything happens for a reason according to God's plan. But sometimes it won't make a bit of sense to us. And I know y'all know what I'm talking about, because I mean, I get into situations like this don't even make no sense. Like, it doesn't make sense. What was the point of Arshish telling David you can't fight, knowing that he was the best warrior on the team? That don't even make no sense. Why wouldn't you take your strongest person to fight with you? It just doesn't make any sense. Just like it's I'm sorry, but that's the sovereignty of God. He knows what's best for us, and it was time for David to move. If I have any problems with God, any whatsoever, it's his sovereignty, because God can do what he wants to do when he wants to do it. He'll use who he want to use. It don't matter, and there ain't nothing nobody could do about it. I got problems with that. I'm not gonna front. God knows I do. That's my theological issue with the Lord. His sovereignty. He could do what he want to do, but sometimes it just don't make no sense. And it's like, come on, Jesus, why can't it be done this way? But we don't know more than God. We just don't know more than God, and that's just what it comes down to. We're looking at the immediate situation. It's like, God, I think it should be handled this way, so work that out. But God is he sees the end from the beginning from the end. So it's like, nah, it's not going down like that. And so therein lies my issues. But what you have to understand is sometimes you didn't do anything to be in a situation or for the shift to occur. Sometimes it ain't about what you have done. David asks, what have I done? It's not, you didn't do anything. It's not that you've done anything. It's just time for the shift. He also asks David, what have you found against me? While Aisha found nothing against David, others knew his strength. They knew that the favor of God was on his life. They knew that anything he put his hands to do, he accomplished. There was nothing negative found against David, but the very fact that his work spoke for him, that is what became an offense to the commander of the Philistine army. That's what became the offense. What have you found in me? What fault have you found in me? I know your works. That's offensive to me. So your works can be offensive. That's the message. Your works can be offensive, but you don't become the offense. Your works can be offensive because what you do is what you do, as long as you don't become an offense. What do you mean, Shay? I mean that you don't dumb down for nothing, for no reason, for no circumstances, for nobody. If people don't like your greatness, and this is real talk, they don't like the fact that you're great, oh well, that's not your problem. You just need to go ahead and be great. Go ahead and continue to do what you're doing. Oh well, you ain't got to like me. You ain't got to like my greatness. Everybody is not gonna like me. Honey, they talked about Jesus. Jesus came to save the world, and the people was trying to kill him. So what more are you? Like, seriously, what more are you? Bishop Noel Jones says it best. It's not because of who you are that you are getting into trouble, but it's because of what you have been called to do. So no, you haven't done anything wrong. You simply can't stay here. There is no fault in you. There's just a shift taking place. People are going to be uncomfortable with your greatness. Let them be uncomfortable. Oh well, what can you do about that? That's not your fault. You don't stop being great because the people don't like it. Anyway, David also asks, why couldn't I go to fight? And when he said this, I really want to say, David, stop your whining. David, stop. Why can't I go to fight? Stop your whining now. First of all, you done fought a lot of fights and you won plenty of them. And so stop tripping. Stop tripping. Why can't I go to fight? And so I really want to say, David, stop your whining. You're not needed anymore. Your season is up. A shift has come. Don't take it personal when people reject you. Don't take it personal when people reject you. You have got to believe that there is a plan and a purpose for your life. So places that were good for you, they're no longer good for you. Why? You got to identify that place that's no longer good for you. It used to be, but it's not no more. You don't get the same feeling. No, it's not the same no more. Why? Because you can't stay there. Some of the things that you do, that's no longer bringing you, satisfaction or anything. Why? Because you can't stay here. You cannot become complacent. You cannot become comfortable. You have got to move. There's absolutely no need to fight against God when a shift is coming, because that's what we try to do. Our arms are too short to box with God. He is stronger. He is strong. He created us. He's the stronger person. Like, you can't fight this thing. You're just going to have to go ahead and let it happen, because you cannot stay here. A change is coming, folks. Don't take the rejection personally. Let the change occur. Let the shift happen. Anything that doesn't grow, anything that stays the same, it's retarded. Something is wrong with it. You have got to grow. You got to get up out of that situation, whatever it might be. Don't take your rejection personally. I want to play this song, continue on with the lesson, and then this next point that I want to talk about is that you need to embrace the shift, right? So what have we said so far? We talked about you're known by your works, and then we talked about not taking your rejection personally, right? So now we're dealing with embracing the shift, because the shift is coming, ladies and gentlemen, whether you like it or not, ready or not, it's coming. Okay, so we tend to want to defend our position that we have held for however long we have held it, right? My work should secure my position, or at least that's what we think. If we've done something, then that should secure our position in the thing. I mean, that's only right? Yeah, right. We become territorial over the things that was just meant to be part of our life for a season. Why is it so hard for us to understand that seasons come and seasons go, seasons change, nothing remains the same, so nothing that you have is supposed to be the same. Everything is always supposed to be progressive, moving forward, forever changing for the better, sometimes for the worse, just so it could get better, but things change. Some people just want to hold on to stuff. We become territorial. This is my spot. This is my title. This is my job. This is my man. This is my woman. This is mine. This is mine. This is mine. All this stuff, it's mine. It's mine. Well, guess what, folks? We can't take anything that we try to hold on to with us when everything is said and done. And I'm talking about when you are in the grave. You can't take it with you. It doesn't matter to you no more. It might matter to the people that you left behind, but it doesn't matter to you anymore. And what tends to happen is those things that we try to hold on to, it takes up space for those things that we really need in our life. The scripture says that Arshis tells David that he has been wonderful, he has been great, he has been grand, but still he got to go. He can't stay here. You've been great, you've been awesome, but you cannot stay here. What you need to understand is just because your season may be up in one place, it does not erase all of what you have done. It doesn't erase that. It's just that your season is up there, but everything that you have learned, it is not wasted. All of your work, all of your tests, all of the trials, all of this is going to help build you, is going to help sustain you in the place of where you are going, because you can't stay where you're at. Remember, nothing is lost. The scripture says that Ashes instructed David to get up early in the morning, gather your servants, and go. You ain't just got to go, but get all your stuff and go. I'm laughing because I know y'all have heard people say, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get up out of here. That's basically what he was saying to David. My. If we examine this from an emotional standpoint, it's enough to make somebody want to cuss or somebody want to fight. How dare you? You mean to tell me that I served you, and now because people that don't like me or don't want me around, you are going to allow them to influence you and you're going to get rid of me? It's a shift taking place. It's a shift taking place. Most of the people, or most of us, would have went off when we heard that. I know I would have. Like, what you mean? Right, but I'm just saying. But we got to understand that we don't need to defend our position. We don't need to hold on to stuff. When something is over, it is over. That is just what it is. But notice what the text says. David and his men got up early in the morning to go back to the land of the Philistines, right? After David finished whining and asking all these questions, and Ashla reiterated, like, listen, you can't stay here. No matter what you say right now, you can't stay here. After he finished doing all that, he got up the next morning and he gathered all his things and he went. Now, understand that David wasn't necessarily okay with the fact that he was leaving. We know that because he was asking all of those questions, right? He wasn't okay with not going into the battle with the Philistines, but a shift had to take place and he was put in a position where he had to embrace it. Ain't nothing else you can do. You can't go with us. You can't stay here, so you might as well go ahead and embrace the shift. It would have been easier if we could simply discern the shift that had taken place, right? If we knew that, okay, Today is what? December 14th. We know that on December 16th, a shift is taking place. It's easier for us to flow with that. But sometimes shifts happen. Sometimes we're forced into shifts, and that's when it becomes uncomfortable for us. That's when we start kicking and fighting, and we don't want to deal with it. But what happens if we become so comfortable and so complacent? Then when things change up, we get angry and we get frustrated. That's what happens when a shift takes place that we wasn't expecting. It's like, oh, I wasn't expecting this. I could have prepared better. But what would happen if you was in tune with the Lord and he was letting you know that a shift is going to take place? What would happen? We got to get in tune with God. We have got to learn that we cannot stay where we are now, no matter how good of a place you are. Many of you are in. You have got to embrace your shift. Had David decided to fight with Absalom and demand to stay with him, he would have missed out on knowing that his family was in danger. Because you have to understand, if you read the scripture further, Ashley told David, you can't stay here. You can't go to fight with us. Go back. And if David would have decided to fight Ashley and say, no, I'm fighting. I'm going. I've been repping with y'all for this long. You ain't about to get rid of me. I'm staying here. If he would have did that, he would not have went back to Ziklag and realized that the whole town was was raided and all of the people were kidnapped, including his wives. They were kidnapped. And now David was in a position, because he went back, he was able to know that they was raided, know that his wives were taken, and he was able to go after the men. The men didn't have a huge head start ahead of him. He was able to go. But had he went to battle, the wives would have been gone, the people would have been gone, everybody would have been gone. But he sent them back. That's why you can't take certain rejections personally. David got back in enough time to find out where the Amalekites went. Those are the people that kidnapped all of his people. He petitioned the Lord and asked him, Lord, shall I pursue? And this was David's custom. Anytime he was about to go fight, he would petition the Lord, shall I pursue? And the Lord would tell him yeah or no. So in this case, he said, yeah, pursue, and you're going to overtake him. And that's exactly what David did. He pursued and he conquered the people. David was back on the field doing what he was called to do. And Ashla was off doing what he was called to do. David was fighting. Ashla was wherever he was at fighting, or whatever the case may be. Sometimes parting ways is just that. It's just parting ways. You can't stay in a place no more. Don't get angry. Don't get bitter. Don't burn your bridge. He could have went off on Ashla. You ain't got to do all that. When you fight to hold on to something and you don't embrace the shift that has come in your life, you can mess up your destiny. And that's just what it is. Remember, David was anointed king as a young boy around the age of 10. It hadn't come to pass yet. He wasn't king yet. David wasn't king yet. When God is committed to you, when he has promised something to you, you have his word that it shall come to pass. Isaiah 55:11 says, so is my word that goes out of my mouth. It will not return to me empty, meaning it will not return to him void, but it will accomplish what I desire and achieve the purpose for which I sent it. That means that anything God has said, it is going to come to pass. Your problem is you don't know what God has said, and you need to find out what God has said concerning your situation, because he has a promise for you. And if he has a promise for you, it is going to come to pass. You can't stay in your situation. David couldn't stay with Ashla. You can't stay in your current situation. David had to keep moving. You got to keep moving. And God is saying to you, move. You can't stay here. You got to get it moving. There's no room anymore. Don't take the rejection personally. I'm the one that caused the person to reject you. Get up out of that situation. A shift has arrived. A new season has arrived, and you have to embrace this new season. I want to play this song. It's a new season. It's a new day. There's a fresh anointing coming my way. It's a season of power and prosperity. It's a new season, and it's coming to me. Y'all need to embrace that. Let's listen to the song.
Say it. It's a new season, and it's a new day. Fresh anointing. Not the old stuff, fresh anointing. Somebody say, this is fresh. It's flowing my way. Right now, it's a season of power. Let the weak say I am strong. And prosperity. Let the poor say I am rich. Oh, it's a new season coming to me. Lift your voices and say it. It's a new season. It's a new day. It's a new day. Fresh anointing. It's flowing my way. Can you stand it tonight? It's a season of power and prosperity. Whoa, it's a new season. Come on, say it's a new season. Tell the person next to you it's a new season. Oh, yes it is. It's a new season. Bring it on down. Listen, the devil's time is up. No longer can he bother me. 'Cause the creator of the universe and father's man, and it's transferable. My children shall be free. It's a new season. It's a new season. If you don't know, but now you need to know it's Jubilee. But debts are canceled and children walk in victory. It's all available to you right now. Just taste and see. It's a new season. Say, it's a new season. Oh, it's a new day. Fresh anointing. Oh, flowing my way. It's a season of power, and prosperity. Come on, somebody just get up off of your feet. Come on, sing. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. It's a new season. It's a new season. Break it on down. Take another step forward. Come on, you're in the new season. Yeah. The new millennium presents a new horizon, and no greater time for us to make a choice and take a stand. All that we need is resting in his hand. It's a new season. It's a new season. All that was stolen is returned to you 100-fold. Tried in the fire, but you're coming out gold. Maybe you didn't hear me. I said, all that was stolen is returned to you 100-fold. Tried in the fire, but you're coming out gold. You're coming out gold. Say you're coming out gold. How many been tried in the fire? You're coming out gold. Grab somebody's hand and pull them. Say you're coming out gold. Woo! Say you're coming out gold. Yeah, say you're coming out gold. All that was stolen is returned to you 100-fold. Tried in the fire, but you're coming out good. Cling to his hand, yes to every promise, take a hold. It's a new season. It's a new season. Oh, it's a new day. Fresh anointing. It's flowing your way. It's a season of power. Yeah. And prosperity. Whoa, it's a new seed coming to me. Yeah, it's a new seed. How many believe it? It's coming to me one more time. It's a new seed coming to me. Yeah.
Today's lesson. What are we talking about today? We're talking about you can't stay here, right? That is what we are talking about. And so when we talk about you can't stay here, when you think about a bird, when a bird is born, a baby bird is born, you know, there comes a time where it has to leave the nest. It has to get up out of its comfort zone and leave the nest. And sometimes the mother have to give it a little push, because unbeknownst to the little bird, there's no more room. There is no more room in this nest. It's time for you to go. And so the hopes is that when the mother kind of pushes the bird out, that the birds will spread its wing and fly and not hit the ground and die or seriously hurt itself. That is the thought. You understand? And so when you think about it, God is nudging you. There was a reason that you heard today's teaching, you can't stay here. God is nudging you. You are in a place of, I can't stay here no more. I can't stay here no more. But some people are saying, but I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Well, God is saying, yes, you do. You know where you're supposed to go. I haven't hid my will from you. I haven't hid my will for your life from you. You know where you are supposed to go. You know where you are supposed to be. You might not have the full picture, but you caught a glimpse of where you are supposed to be. And so I'm nudging you with today's lesson, saying to you, you cannot stay here anymore. You have some good experiences underneath your belt. You have enough that you have been through that is going to help you maintain where I am sending you, the different place, the place of shifting. You have enough. Don't blame people because they rejected you. Don't blame people for what they did do to you or even what they didn't do. Don't blame them, because I'm in the midst of all of this. I'm in the midst of everything, and you don't have to worry about the fact that they rejected you, because I'm in the midst and it's a new season and I need for you to shift. God is saying, my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are my ways your ways. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. Folks, you can't stay here. And I don't know what your here is. Your here may be, you might be in a shelter. You can't stay there. You might be in an abusive relationship. You can't stay there. You might be depressed. You might be stressed out. You might be abusing alcohol or drugs, or I don't know what your here is. Maybe you lie too much. Maybe people are lying to you all the time. You can't stay in that place. You can't stay. You got emotional scars, all kinds of stuff. You can't stay here. Bad relationships. You can't stay there. You cannot stay there. Whatever your here is, God is saying, you can't stay here. You have got to hear this and hear it clearly. It is time for you to go. Don't fight it. You cannot win against God. Somehow, some way, he is going to get his way. So you might as well just go ahead and embrace it. Staying in your comfort place affects your destiny. You cannot stay here. And so I want to go ahead and play this song. We got another 10 minutes left, folks. And, I just thank God for you guys. I thank you for listening. I got about 10 minutes left, and so of course we're gonna rock out to something awesome in our last 10 minutes. But if you miss me at the 3:00 hour, today's show will be on my YouTube channel, Shay Askew. You can reach me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, my website, shayalaskew.com. Everything is Shay Askew, and I know you see it above my head just in terms of the different ways to get in touch with me. Like I said, I am still excited. I still have my hat, and I think I'm not gonna wear it this week, but I don't know yet, honey. But I'm still excited. God is still good. He has done some awesome and wonderful things in my life. He's going to do some wonderful and awesome things in your life. You have to remember that you cannot stay here. You can't stay where you are. You don't have to take rejection personally. People are going to know you by your works, and that is a good thing if you have worked diligently and your work can speak for itself. Not if you're doing some crooked stuff, obviously. We don't want to be known for those things. But nevertheless, you got to get ready for this shift, because there is a shifting taking place. And as you think about going into the new year, there's a new shift. It's a new year. So clearly there's a new shift. And so we want to be able to shift, effortlessly. And even if it's a little, long as we shift, even if it's a little uncomfortable, just shift, honey. Just shift. Don't stay where you are. And so I just believe that you can't stay where you are. God gave me that lesson last night, and I was just like, yeah. Can't stay where you are. It speaks directly to my life, but it also, I knew that it would speak to a lot of people. And so that's the word that God gave me to give to you today. And so I hope that you enjoyed it. Again, today is Sunday. You've been on Spiritual Sense with Shay, WVLM, musiclive.com. Again, shout out to DJ Dummy, who is back from touring all over the place. Shout out to you. I hope to hear you on the station in the morning. OMG, the Breakfast Club. I hope you're going to be there. Word up, like straight up like that. So anyway, thank you guys for listening. You want to show somebody the love that dwells within inside of you. That is the love of the Lord. Jesus loves you, and so do I. Until next week, same place, same time, same channel, Vusic Live, 3 p.m., Spiritual Sense with Shay. We are going to rock out to